Giving up long-term contracts is very risky.
Thomas W. O'Donnell is an energy analyst with the Hertie School of Governance. He joins us now via Skype from Berlin. Thank you very much for being with us. So, different interpretations here from, obviously, from Russia and from others as to what's going on. What's your take on this?
Well, if you took the Russians at their word when they first made the cut of 40%, they said it was because there were some compressor parts they had sent off to Siemens to repair, I believe, in Canada, and they can't be returned because of sanctions. Fine. I mean, they could have a waiver to get the parts back, and let's see if anything changes. I doubt it would. This is a continuation of what's been going on now, in particular since August of last year, when they began cutting gas to Europe. It's a weaponization of the dependency of Europe on Russian gas. They're weaponizing that dependency.
And what about the timing of this? I mean, obviously we had European leaders in Ukraine today. Do you think it was linked to that?
Well, I mean, we try to figure out what's in Mr. Putin's mind. I don't know if it's particularly linked to that, but I would say that there's been a consistent policy, there's been a consistent pattern. Last year, in the 2021-2022 winter, we were very low, used up a lot of gas, and had to build up gas for this past winter. And Mr. Putin refused to send spot gas, that is, gas that wasn't in any long-term contracts. And he did not fill European storage. That put the European Union in a very precarious position this last winter. We only really got through it without rationing because it wasn't exceptionally cold and the wind blew and so forth for that. So he's continuing this pattern by playing games. Then he also had the game, you'll remember, of rubles. If you don't pay me in rubles, I won't give you gas. Well, it turns out that Uniper, a company here in Germany, and Eni, the Italian company, agreed to pay in rubles. And they've both announced this today, that their gas is being cut as part of this. So it's a new game. The lower the reserves in Europe are, the lower the supply is now. When winter comes and it's cold, the more likely that there'll have to be rationing in Europe, and quite a crisis, a political crisis and an economic crisis that affects everybody. And this is something Putin can do to Europe as part of an economic war, along with his real war, his real hot war against Ukraine.
So you're painting quite a bleak picture of what could happen. I mean, Europe has been trying to diversify sources of gas, but I suppose that's a slow process. What happens if, Russia decides to cut off the gas completely, which I suppose it could do, couldn't it?
Well, yes. I don't think any politician wants to go into great detail, but it's well known. In 2014, after Putin invaded Ukraine the first time, when Obama was president, there was a G7 meeting, and they decided to do a stress test. The stress test was, tell us what happens if Russia cuts off the gas for a month, 3 months, 6 months. And they looked at a map of the European Union. They asked all the countries what would happen. And it turns out that there's a whole lot of countries, of course, that are almost completely dependent on Russian gas for gas. It would be very difficult to supply these countries. Let me explain, if I may. The storage that's being filled up in Europe is sort of for a surge in wintertime. That assumes that all the big pipelines from Russia, as well as Norway, are all running at full tilt, and they can't provide enough in winter, and that's what the storage is for. But if those pipelines are cut off from Russia, the storage cannot make up the difference. You would be short, and you're going to have to start deciding what to cut. So that stress test showed that there simply would not be enough gas. You can only bring so much new LNG in and so forth. And countries, the conclusion was that solidarity will get us through it. I wrote an article at the time calling it official optimism. That means countries who had extra gas would have to ship it to countries who had no gas. But in this case, there won't be any countries with extra gas. So countries who have a little more than others will be forced to share. And you can imagine the problems that would arise in the European Union under that situation.
Thomas O'Donnell, thank you very much indeed for your expertise on the subject. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Fears of blackouts across much of Australia in the coming days have prompted the Energy Minister to urge millions not to use electricity for 2 hours every evening, if possible. The energy crisis is one of a range of challenges